We're gonna take a trip right now. Like we always do about this time.
This is a journey into sound. Break it down.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. You've heard of classic Hoosier songwriters like Cole Porter and Hoagy Carmichael, but you may not have heard of the Indianapolis songwriter, Bruz Fletcher. A pianist and vocalist, Bruz wrote witty, risque songs about gay life, outsiders, and the shadowy edges of American society.
Just be gay and don't regret was what you said to do. Tell your friends you're through with me. Start your life anew. Close the door to memory. Pretend it never was. There must be things to take your place, but somehow nothing does.
This week on Cultural Manifesto, we'll celebrate Pride Month by exploring the life and music of Bruz Fletcher, one of the first openly gay musicians in American music and a pioneer of LGBTQ plus culture in the 1930s. Bruz Fletcher was born into one of Indiana's most powerful dynasties. His ancestor, Calvin Fletcher, was one of Indiana's founding figures, a state senator and banker. But by the time of the Wall Street crash, the family wealth was gone. Through it all, Bruz Fletcher made music that was decades ahead of its time. But sadly, Bruz took his own life in 1941. He was just 34 years old. In a moment, author Tyler Alpern will join me to discuss his biography, Bruz Fletcher, Camped, Tramped, and a Riotous Vamp. But first, let's listen to one of Bruz Fletcher's best-known songs. This is Drunk with Love.
I'm drunk with love, my body aches. Just one shot, that's all it takes to make me cry and tell you why. I'm drunk, dead drunk with love. Rotten liquor, mostly gin, every place I stumble in.
That was Bruz Fletcher performing Drunk with Love. And I'm joined now by Tyler Alpern, author of the 2010 book Bruz Fletcher, Camped, Tramped, and a Riotous Vamp. Like Bruz Fletcher, Alpern grew up in Indianapolis. He currently lives in Boulder, Colorado. We spoke via Zoom. Let's join our conversation. Tyler, thank you so much for taking time to do this today. I've been looking forward to talking to you and learning more about the life of Bruz Fletcher and your interest in his work. So thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm really impressed that you knew how to pronounce his name.
Bruz Fletcher had a dramatic life, to say the least. At times, his life was filled with extreme wealth and luxury and opulence. At times, his life was filled with unimaginable tragedy and pain. He was born in 1906 to one of the wealthiest and most historic Indiana families. Everyone who grows up in Indianapolis knows Fletcher Place neighborhood, or there's even a coffee shop named after his great-great-uncle.
Great.
He spent part of his childhood in Laurel Hall, an extravagant mansion and estate his father built around 1916. But during the 1920s, Bruz Fletcher's family and world just completely shattered in tragedy. First of all, what can you share with us about Bruz Fletcher's early life in Indiana, some of the good things and some of the positive experiences he had as a kid?
You are correct. He was born into this very wealthy family who had the Fletcher Bank, but they also were, the first investors in the Speedway, and also raised racehorses. One of Bruz Fletcher's father's horses, Peter the Great, is one of only two direct lines of trotting horses that we have today. So they had parties at Laurel Hall that were so big they used washing machines, it said, to mix the cocktails for the parties. And I think that they were a fun, lively bunch, not, bankers we think of as being as stereotypically conservative as far as, you don't want that wild party person playing around with your money, right? So that they have a reputation that they have to maintain. But I think that the Fletchers broke the mold on that.
Yeah, there's apparently all sorts of urban legends around Indianapolis about things that went on in their house, including bringing a racehorse into the house and riding it around. I've read that online. So he grew up with all the, in his early years, all the status, privilege, and wealth that you could imagine a family of that stature had here in Indiana.
Absolutely, yes.
And Tyler, as I alluded to, there was also incredible tragedy in the Fletcher family. The family lost its fortune during the 1920s, and there was a horrific double suicide that occurred in the family. What can you share with us about sort of the extreme tragedy that Bruz Fletcher lived through during this time?
Well, so you mentioned the double suicide. What happened was Fletcher's father was in Chicago on business, and he was home from boarding school. So he's around 13 years old or something. It's spring break. And his mother, who is in a lot of pain because she has cancer, finally decides to end her life. And she decides to end her life by drinking poison. So she goes to her beautiful bedroom and she gets, the glass of poison and lies down in her bed and sips from the poison. And her mother, who was visiting, finds her dead in her bed and is so overcome, she grabs the poison thinking it's just a glass of water to, her mouth suddenly goes dry. And so she drinks the poison unknowing that she's just killed herself. And there's a butler in the house, and Bruz, they're the only two men at home at the time. And the butler finds the bodies. And I think that Bruz never really liked butlers anymore. He doesn't paint them very favorably in his songs or in his novels. He's always suspicious of butlers. I think it comes back to that. But then shortly after that, he himself tries to commit suicide. When I was doing the research and there was so little, there was nothing out there. So I, from the back of one of his record covers, it mentioned the boarding school he went to in Pennsylvania. So I wrote to them and I was very curious. I said, this was in 1919, but one of your students, I'm curious about, do you still have records? And they said, well, we do, but they're off-site. We'll have to get back to you on that. And so she writes me back and says, oh, yes, I did find something. We expelled him because he shot himself. And every time I tried to research something about him, it only raised more questions. It never answered a question.
Summer, winter, fall, I adore them all. But in April or in May, a day is born that makes me say, I want to sing because it's spring in Manhattan. I'm glad to be alive. There's a little tree just across the street from me. I want to shout, the leaves are out, and soon a bluebird will arrive.
Eventually, he leaves Indiana. Do we know what year he left Indiana and what were the circumstances? I can imagine he'd want to have some separation between himself and these tragic events he experienced here. Do we know what the circumstances were?
He left in 1924 with his father and sister. His sister was even more eccentric than anybody else in the family. And they moved to California when Fletcher Sr. declared bankruptcy and lost Laurel Hall.
Eventually, he becomes a star in the Los Angeles nightclub scene. Did he immediately start performing? What was his pathway to becoming the songwriter and performer we remember him for being today?
He started in vaudeville. And so he was writing songs for some very big stars of the day, silent screen stars. And they would have acts that they would travel around the country. And then as it transitioned a few years later into making sound movies. These women didn't know what they were going to do, and they were sort of proving their chops, that they did have voices. He wrote not only songs, but entire acts for them, and he would perform on stage. He would be the pianist while they performed the songs that he wrote, and they would be wearing the gowns that his lover, Casey Roberts, designed for them. So he brought his boyfriend along, and they were in business together, taking silent screen stars and giving them a second career. And so that's how he got on stage, and first creating songs and music for other people, and then for himself.
She's a nympho, dipso, egomaniac, a bundle of good, clean fun, unsquelchable, insatiable, pushover Amy. And her one real brainy acquisition is a second-rate physician who can keep her in condition, a gentleman more fully explained on the other opposite or reverse side of this high-class, middle-price, low-tone, magnificently prepared, musically impregnated bit of old, flat, black wax. She's a complex, reflex, multi-sexation. When you're done, she's only begun.
And Tyler, you mentioned his partner, Casey Roberts, and you've written about their relationship and referred to them as one of the few openly gay couples living a very public life at that time. Tell me about that aspect of Bruz Fletcher's life. Did that create any trouble for him during that time period, being so out and open?
Yes. Of course, everything was done in a coded way. They were out and open. Everybody knew, but it was also, when you read about them in the newspaper, like attending a party, it, doesn't say Bruz and Casey went to this party. Their names are both listed as the guests. They lived together in Hollywood, but they had, I think, separate bedrooms for show. But there are articles about how their house was a salon for artists, and all sorts of writers and dancers and musicians and actors would come for their evening soirees. And then they left California after Bruz's sister died under bizarre and tragic circumstances, and moved to Newport, Rhode Island, where they did the same thing. And they held salons, and they wrote articles in the paper about each other's work and welcomed people into their home. It was known that they were living together. It was put into paper. It wasn't explained that they were lovers and sleeping together. And later they also moved to Palm Springs, where they did the same things. They lived together and did art exhibits. Casey was an artist as well as a costumer, and Bruz was a photographer. But that's when he started to play for himself in cafes in Palm Springs, and they would host gala balls for society and such. And then they came back in 1934 to California. But in all of those places, they shared a residence, and it's all in the press about what they were doing in their residence and the collaborations that they were doing.
There's nothing so gay as a stinking cafe, a club where the night mites rally. There's nothing so vicious or costly pernicious as the life we all lead in the alley. For birthdays and weddings and airing our beddings, the home is no longer a boon. A private pleasure or vex we now make public as sex. The salon of today's the saloon.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. If you're just tuning in, my guest is Tyler Alpern, author of Camped, Tramped, and A Riotous Vamp, a biography of the Indiana songwriter Bruz Fletcher, one of the first openly gay musicians in American music. Let's return to our conversation. During the time that Bruz was active as a songwriter, there was an artistic movement, I don't know how else to refer to it, known as the pansy craze. Was Bruz a part of this movement, and how can you kind of explain this term, the pansy craze?
Yes, he is lumped into the pansy craze. The pansy craze was a time when it was a sort of pre-code Hollywood, so that you could get away with on screen before there was these ratings and dialing in things. So gay performers who are a little more prominent There could be drag queens in movies. Soon afterwards, you couldn't even go on stage in drag, and you certainly couldn't be in public in drag in the 1930s, late 30s. But there was a brief moment before the code when gay performers could be a little more out. And then Bruz, even when the pansy craze ended, he was able to still perform and be fairly out because his nightclub was in a very small part of LA on Sunset Boulevard known as the Sunset Strip, which is outside of LA County, and so wasn't under the jurisdiction of the LA County Sheriff, and they were allowed to perform work, and gay men could come together. It's illegal for more than 3 gay men to be in the same room at this time in LA, but on the Sunset Strip, you could be more out and open. And his songs and the way that he performed at a very fast clip, most people didn't even understand what he was saying, and it was just sort of amusing, ha-ha. And before you could really get the joke or the double entendre of what he meant, we were, 3 jokes down. So that was a way, too, that he was able to attract a crowd that was not just gay, but was gay-friendly, and so it was not just a gay bar. It was very mixed, but a place that was comfortable for one to be themselves if they were gay.
Till one morning early she saw Hilly Brown depart. The older folk was angry. They decided on recourse. They hired a slick attorney, and they said with all their force, "Oh, we'll bill Hilly, yes, we'll bill Hilly for the damage what he done to little Nell, our Nell. She's an ill filly, yes, an ill filly, for he done his damage and he done it well."
He eventually had a chance to record his original songs. I think he recorded around 20 songs during the 1930s. And this is not your typical pop music from that era. These are very sophisticated songs. Lyrically, the lyrics are very daring. What can you tell us about Bruz's work as a recording artist, and how did he get these unique and risque songs recorded during this time?
Well, he recorded for the Liberty Music Shop, which recorded a lot of New York cabaret artists. And so that's how he got this recording contract. And at that time, a lot of record shops sold work under the counter, which means that, these were things that were a little more risque. And if you knew about them, you could ask for them. So by word of mouth. And Bruz Fletcher was not the only person who had recordings in this vein or in this style. His had more double entendres and were a little more risque, but it was very similar to the work of a man, Dwight Fisk, or of a wonderful lesbian performer, Madame Spivey, who also had her own nightclub in New York, and that's a whole other legendary story.
Is it worth it? For that momentary something to yowl around till neighbors call a cop? Is it worth it? For that momentary something to have 900 kittens call you pop? You've been an awful wildcat. You should welcome a vacation. Just to sit around and brood and think about your operation. I'll give you one more night out to complete your education. Then the sheltered life is good enough for you. I took him to the vet and had his profile bobbed. And when he sat down, he said, "Hell, I've been robbed."
Tyler, you mentioned he was writing acts and music for silent film stars. How were his original songs received? Did he have an audience for this music that he was recording?
I have no idea about his sales other than the fact that Liberty Music Shop continued to record him over a period of many years. So if the first records didn't go anywhere, they wouldn't have kept recording him. And he also did record for his own label somewhere in the middle of the 30s as well. So I imagine since he had releases on Liberty over a 5 or 6 year period that they sold pretty well.
These songs sound so fresh and relevant today. The things that he's writing about are still concerns we have today. Are there a few songs of his that really stand out to you that you'd want to kind of elaborate on or share with our listeners?
Absolutely. Well, his most famous song is Drunk with Love, and that lived on quite a while after his death. It became actually an anthem that you would hear in lesbian bars in the 40s and 50s. If you read accounts of the day, they all mentioned somebody was singing Drunk with Love, whether it was a drag king or whether it was Frances Faye, but you knew you were in a lesbian bar because Drunk with Love was being sung, and it's a terrific song. He wrote Peter Lily Daisy, which he recorded twice, and then the second time he recorded it, he called it It. And that is about a non-binary character, of which, how many things from the 1930s are about non-binary characters? So that's one of my favorites, and it's very clever, and it ends happily. So many stories about people who are outside the mainstream and gay people in the 30s generally end with them dying or something horrible happening. And in Peter Lily Daisy is absolutely affirming song. And what's another? I love My Doctor, which is basically a love song that he sings to his doctor. And it's pretty saucy, and the double entendres, you can imagine what they might be.
I wonder if you would inconvenience yourself and peek about under those sheets and see if you can find an old, dismantled T-model body. I believe she's having an appendectomy put on her first edition. Oh, how grand you found her. She's what? She's under ether. She's lying under ether? Well, ask him to get up for a moment and let her come to the phone. That girl was ever the one to think only of her own pleasure, and me with 6 nut-brown fruit-filled loaves scorching in my Dutch or fireless cooking oven. Hello, operating room? Well, don't be antiseptic about it. All I know about sterilization is what I need for the bare essentials of New York living in this germ-filled metropolis.
Let's take a break from my conversation with Tyler Alpern and listen to another song from Bruz Fletcher. From 1937, this is It, also known as Peter Lily Daisy.
Little Peter Lily Daisy had the doctors in a whirl, for physically it certainly could vex. They simply could not tell if it were boy or girl, for the minute they'd decide, it would quickly change its sex. This unusual ability it plied with great agility. In the space of just 1 second, it would switch. And because it loved to do it, and did when no one knew it, they called it neither he nor she, but much more simply, which. Its schooling was a bit coeducational. After leaving Smith, it hustled to West Point. It got honor marks in classes in both places with both masses.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. On this week's show, we're celebrating Pride Month by exploring the life and music of the Indianapolis songwriter, Bruz Fletcher, one of the first openly gay musicians in American music. My guest is Tyler Alpern, author of Bruz Fletcher, Camped, Tramped, and a Riotous Vamp. We'll return to my conversation with Tyler in a moment, but first, let's hear more music from Bruz Fletcher. This is Reminiscent of You.
Each thing I do, each thing I say, each star of night, each cloud of day, each thought I have is in a way reminiscent of you. Places I go, people I meet, walking all day on world-weary feet, seem to recall everything sweet, reminiscent of you.
That was Bruz Fletcher with Reminiscent of You. And my guest this week is Tyler Alpern, author of the Bruz Fletcher biography, Camped, Tramped, and a Riotous Vamp. Let's return to our conversation. We talked about Bruz Fletcher's early life being full of tragedy, and his life came to a tragic end in 1941. What can you share with us about Bruz Fletcher's final years and his tragic end?
He had a number of tragedies that happened in his last years. He was involved in a car crash that when he was driving drunk and he hit some people. Nobody died, but he was sued, and there was legal trouble with that. Very sadly, he and Casey lost their home and all of their pet monkeys in a fire. He was out buying cigarettes, and the whole house burned down to ashes. Casey Roberts, his partner, went through the ashes and found soup cans that had, that's about the only thing that survived. And he cut up those soup cans and made a sculpture out of them that is if you ever see Ingrid Bergman's first American film, that sculpture of the soup cans is in the background of the dining room in the beautiful home. But it was a tragedy for them to lose everything and have to start again. He eventually loses his job at the Club Bali and sort of wanders around New York for a while. He comes back to Los Angeles in the fall before he commits suicide. Some of his colorful friends were very concerned about him, and there are some telegrams that still exist that talk about, what's going on with him. But he does find his way back to California, and it's said in the press, despondent over having lost his job, but it's far more complicated than that. He commits suicide by asphyxiating himself in the garage of Jack Snowden, who was the person who built that great house on Franklin, that Mayan house that they say the Black Dahlia was killed at. That's not the house where Bruz committed suicide, but the owner had since moved into another house, and that's where Bruz committed suicide.
His death made national news, correct? I know it was written about here in Indianapolis. What sort of impact did his death have culturally?
I don't know if there was any cultural impact other than, another sad story about a gay man dying young and not being accepted. I think that for years in, certainly the Hollywood's presentation of who gay people were, that was a true gay Hollywood story. And then the gay Hollywood stories that we see until the 1990s, the 2000s, where the gay characters don't die, was just part of that coloring.
I want a shack across the track with a front door and a back so that I can get away if necessary. I want a spacious second floor, in every room a gracious. It's the simple things of life for me. I want a bird cage rather nice and 3 lovely loaded dice, far superior to a bird.
You've played a huge role in keeping the music and story of Bruz Fletcher alive. You wrote a book, Bruz Fletcher, Tramped, and a Riotous Vamp. I believe you were involved in compiling the anthology CD, Drunk with Love. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Those were taken from all of my recordings. It took a long time to collect his records. Some of them I've only found once in 20-some years.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you also maintain a website, tyleralpern.com, where you share information and photos about Bruz Fletcher. When did you find out about his story, and what spoke to you so deeply about his life and art that you've invested so much of your own life into maintaining his story and educating people about his work?
If I had known how much work it was going to take to uncover his story, I would have never done it to begin with. I'm the biographer of another gay singer, Frances Faye, and she, as I mentioned earlier, Drunk with Love was one of her signature songs. And everybody was always curious, what is Drunk with Love? Where did it come from? If you look at the different record labels of the different years it was reissued or issued, she recorded it a couple of times. It either said songwriter unknown, songwriter is Queenie Smith, songwriter is Joyce Bryant, songwriter is Bruz Fletcher, which is a really weird name. The singer Peter Allen was desperate to find the sheet music for this song and the story behind it. So finally, I just decided, okay, I'm going to try to figure out where this song came from. What is a Bruz Fletcher? And every time I did some research to answer a question, it only led to more questions. Like when I wrote to his school to find out, do you know anything about this person? Oh, yeah, he killed himself. Or I found out about his mother, or just anything. It only yields more questions, never any answers. And it just became fascinating. And I worked with a librarian in Indianapolis, Georgia Cravey, and we just, every puzzle piece we uncovered just revealed more of the picture. And it was just it was giddy excitement, diving in deep to find out whatever we could.
Did the fact that you were from Indianapolis and he grew up here, did that have any special meaning for you at all?
Of course it did. It absolutely did. I was traumatized as a kid when we left Indiana, and it's so distant to me now that it was a reaching back to touch a part of me that feels long gone.
Yeah. Without your intervention, I would never have known who this man was. None of this would have happened. So none of this work would have been documented as it has. So thank you for all your work in maintaining his story and music. And I'm curious, do you think his life and work has received the attention it deserves up to this point?
Definitely not. Someday somebody's got to make a movie about his story and his music, because it is so captures not only the 1930s, but kind of in the same way that Shakespeare captures the human spirit and human nature. There's just so much truth in the characters that he created. They're very special. They're very rare. And I think that there's more to come on the Bruz front.
Is your work documenting his life over, or is this an ongoing project, an ongoing part of your life? It's
an ongoing project. I have probably another 50 pages I could stick into the book if I ever, get around to redoing the book. And I'm always on the prowl, looking for new things. And it comes in waves. I'll suddenly get contact from a distant relative, and they'll have some photographs, or I will uncover something that has then been digitally released that never was there before, some rare article or something, or letters will turn up. I've uncovered some of his personal letters, or an archive will show up now digitized where somebody who he created work for, or somebody who wrote letters about him will come up. So there's always new stuff that trickles in.
Mm-hmm. So there may be another edition of the book and more updates coming to your website.
Absolutely. And I'm always finding new stuff about Casey, and I own several of his artworks now, which is terrific.
Any final thoughts you want to share, Tyler, on the life and work of Bruz Fletcher?
I just think that it's really important that his work is so filled with joy and humor and that's the thing that I think he would want to be remembered for, not the tragedies.
Well said. Thank you, Tyler.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I really appreciate your interest in his story.
Thank you for all your work documenting the story and keeping the music alive. I know compiling that CD alone sounds like it was an unbelievable task, so thank you.
I'm drunk with love. My body aches. Just one shot, that's all it takes to make me cry and tell you why. I'm drunk, dead drunk with love. Rotten liquor, mostly gin.
We've been listening to my conversation with Tyler Alpern, author of the biography Bruz Fletcher, Camped, Tramped, and a Riotous Vamp. Let's hear more music from Bruz Fletcher. This is Spring in Manhattan.
Summer, winter, fall, I adore them all. But in April or in May, a day is born that makes me say, I want to sing because it's spring in Manhattan. I'm glad to be alive. There's a little tree just across the street from me. I want to shout, the leaves are out, and soon a bluebird will arrive.
That was Bruz Fletcher with Spring in Manhattan. On this week's show, we've been celebrating Pride Month by exploring the life and music of the Indianapolis songwriter Bruz Fletcher, one of the first openly gay musicians in American music. And that's all the time we have this week. If you appreciate the arts and culture programming you hear on this station, please consider making a donation now at WFYI.org/give. And check out the Cultural Manifesto podcast at WFYI.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. Cultural Manifesto is hosted and produced by me, Kyle Long. Our podcast is edited by Holly Summers, And our radio director at WFYI is Roxana Caldwell. Thank you for listening.
Someday he'll walk out my door. I guess that's what doors are for. And then he'll slam it and he'll say, oh, damn it, he loves me, 'cause I'm drunk with love.
A story of the interesting little people whom we meet in the newsreel theaters of the world. I meet the furious, curious, penurious people of the day, and in their funny way, ha-ha, I find them very gay. I learn the history, mystery, blistery tales of love and hate, of the very small and the very great. Wait, flood time in the South. Once again, the mighty Mississippi overflows her banks and runs through the once arid city of Flutesville, Alabama. We hear of the disaster through one of the survivors, Miss Lucy Debussy. Miss Debussy. I was giving a music lesson in the home of a Mrs. Wesson. When the flood began, the family ran, but I was true to my Chopin.